Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm going to do a quick review of last week just to see where we're up to. Last week I shared with you a map of paragraphs 1 to 14. And I tried to show you that the first 14 chapters really give us a particular picture of where Reb Hillel wanted to take us. Let me just show it to you again. We're not going to go into details with it, but just to get an idea of where are we? Like literally, where are we? So for the first 14 chapters, we were kind of wading through a lot of details. And sometimes when you're in the details, it's like literally you're walking through a forest and there are all these things that you're seeing, all the trees. And then occasionally you need to get into a helicopter and look at the forest from above. And then you can say, oh, there I was, and that's where I went. And now I see, I came from here and I went to there. So this is what I wanted to show you with this map of the first 14 paragraphs. And basically, we see that what Reb Hillel did was that he explained to us what is Chochmah, Bina, and Das, in order to explain to us the process of the Mashpia and the process of the Makabel. So all of those details and all of those mashalim and all of everything that we learned was really where did it land? It landed on telling us that the mashpia brings down a concept from beyond the intellect, brings it all the way from the koach maskil into chokhmah over to bina and down to the makabel in bina of bina. And that's where the makabel begins the journey, is on the most external part of bina of bina, which we understand is called iyun. And that begins the process of the makabel from down all the way, working all the way back up to their koach maskil, through bina, all the way up through bina, crossing over to chokhmah, and then accessing hopefully their koach maskil. And the last thing that he told us is we're trying to understand why the Shema is done through Bina and not through Chokhmah, because it seems like Chokhmah is so much more profound. You know, it's like you see it, you sense it, you just know it. Whereas Bina, it seems, and especially Iyun, is much more of a conscious process, and it's compared to listening rather than to seeing. So why would you really know Hashem through the Shema, which is Bina? So he explains that the root of Iyun, which is where the Mashpia, the Makabel, which is us, begins their journey, is the root of that process is in Bina Liba, which is higher even than the root of the highest Das. And so then last week, so that was chapter 14, paragraph 14, where he finally said to us, look, this Iyun process, which is where the Makabel begins the process of trying to understand, is rooted in a very high place called Bina Liba. And now in the next 5 or so paragraphs, he's going to explain to us, where is this Bina Liba? Okay, so I really recommend that you take a look at this in some detail at this map. It's color-coded, so you can see exactly where he's going. And we've posted it on the WhatsApp group, and it's also on the Google Drive. Take a look at it. It gives you this kind of helicopter view of where we landed up until chapter 14. And then last week, we did chapter 15. And in chapter 15, he explained to us, this was the image that we looked at finally. He basically explained to us how what the root of Chochmah is. So we went through the Yud of Chochmah, which is the Rochav of Chochmah, where there's a revelation, the first revelation of the concept into our physical brain. That was the Yud of Chochmah. And then going higher into the Aleph and the Pele, we were going into the Koach HaMaskil, where the Aleph was like the Giddim, where it's coming through one particular idea, and the Pele corresponded to the Tohom, which was a much more hidden part of the Koach HaMaskil. And those three levels are things that we already learned in paragraph 5. And, you can go back and look at those. It's basically, you're going back from Chochmah up into Koach HaMaskil and asking, well, where is that rooted? And so then we were introduced to Chochmah of Ratzon. So he explained that in the Ratzon, there are the 10 Sfirot, and that this flash of insight that comes into Chochmah is really rooted in the Chochmah aspect of Ratzon, of desire, the Chochmah of Ratzon. And we learned the Kabbalistic terms, which I'm not going to go into. But basically what he was showing us last week is that Chochmah is rooted in Ratzon. And this week he's going to show us. Now, why did he need to show us that? Because we're trying to understand why Shema is done through Bina, not Chochmah. So here he was kind of answering that question, because he's saying Chochmah is rooted in Ratzon, and Iyun is rooted higher than Ratzon in Oneg. And he's already told us that, but today we're going to learn that in more detail. It's going to explain to us all the details of the levels of Oneg, and then show us where exactly in Oneg is Bina Liba rooted. And there are going to be a lot of details, but we have very good graphics to help with the process. And ultimately, really, it's like we're on a rocket ship now, going into the superconscious. We're going into Ratzon, we're going into Oneg. These are places above our conscious brain. And so it's very exciting on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's quite new to really know what it is. So on the one hand, you can really understand it just technically, what he's describing for us, and then, later you'll understand it more deeply. But Mila's going to, also explain it to you in a deeper way, to show us what is this oneg in our neshama? How do we experience it? Okay, so I hope that is a clarifying summary for you. And now we can move on to chapter 16. And I put in the chat that it's the Hebrew page 310, paragraph 16, and in English it's page 61. I'll just mention that in the English translation, in this particular paragraph and moving forward, there are a lot of footnotes, and it's worthwhile to read them. It can be quite clarifying as well to read the footnotes in the English translation. Okay, Mila, over to you.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much. I definitely missed you guys last week. And interesting to see how really being part of this class has definitely a tremendous impact on my life and my Seder. And missing that piece of connecting and really as we're discussing these concepts, it definitely influences the way I understand things and it was really missed last week in the way how we unfolded. So Baruch Hashem, I'm happy to be back. And we're going to touch something very, very extraordinary, oneg, right? It's interesting that Chassidus brings out very, very interesting concept to revelation, to the surface, where Kabbalah doesn't really. And that's usually, Kabbalah usually deals with after the Tzimtzum. And Chassidus, interestingly, reveals beyond the Tzimtzum. And we saw that with Alter Rebbe as well. Alter Rebbe wasn't really revealing much from before the Tzimtzum. It was Mittel Rebbe that started to expand on these ideas, and he received a lot of criticism. Alter Rebbe received a lot of criticism as to why Mittel Rebbe is revealing concepts of Keser, which shouldn't be revealed. And Alter Rebbe strongly encouraged the Mittel Rebbe to continue on this path. And now we understand why, because Alter Rebbe represents the sphere of Chachma, right? And as a sphere of Chachma, we could see where the conscious source ends. But the Mittel Rebbe represents Bina, right? Rechovas Anar. And Bina is actually rooted higher, and we're going to Bezrat Hashem see how. And therefore, the Mittel Rebbe was able to draw down that light and make it accessible to us. Not just to draw down the light, but also make it accessible for Chassidim. And 18-hour Ma'amarim and so on and so forth. That was an unusual way of how Mittel Rebbe taught Chassidus, and spreading it out were definitely very, very interesting. Interestingly, just to bring your attention, is this year, Basiligani brings a lot of Mittel Rebbe, the concept that Mittel Rebbe taught in Shara Yichud. I don't know, those who actually go ahead and study these Mamarim from Chavhei and Memhei, we see that the Rebbe takes us on this journey of accessing these levels to us. So that will make our Shara Yichud study a little bit easier, because this is the theme of the whole year. As many Mashpim point out, that whatever the discussions are in Basiligani of that portion, which is the chapter, which is a paragraph 15 from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Rebbe expanded on it for 2 rows, right? For 20 years, explaining the first 20 paragraphs, and then another 20 years explaining each of the paragraphs from a deeper perspective. We see that this becomes a theme of the year. And yes, the theme of the year is what? It's exactly what we're learning in Shara Yichud now, which is the light of Hashem, which is Lamala Mala Aden Kate and Lamata Mata Aden Tachlis. And the Rebbe explains there how the light of Hashem travels in 2 directions at the same time, right? And for us, we're like, oh, we know that. We know that from Shara Yichud, where we learn the concept of Orach and Omeg being in exact proportion to each other. Because why? The light of Hashem travels in 2 directions at the same time. So the deeper you go into something, the lower you're able to bring it down. And the lower you try to bring it down, the deeper you automatically go into it. So, okay, with this introduction, we, Bezrat Hashem, gonna definitely expand our consciousness. And the kavanah of all these workshops is to expand the borders of Eretz Yisrael and secure them. And Baruch Hashem, with so many hostages being released within the last few weeks, definitely gives us hope and courage that we are on the right track. So I'm going to share with you my screen, and we're going to go into the text. Yeah, you're able to see. Okay, let me just do the annotation. And it's a relatively short paragraph, and it definitely, I would say, the most important one, because here the Rebbe is making very, very interesting claim. Ach yadua, it is known, shekol ratzai tzarich liyos oneg betchilasei, that every oneg has, every ratzan has oneg preceding it. And there's absolutely no person here in the Zoom room who could say, I want something, but I really hate what I want. Right? That doesn't happen usually. We're usually drawn, we have strong desire to something that we have pleasure from. Okay? Even when there seems to be no pleasure on the surface for something that we desperately want, if we go deeper enough and we tap into all the whys, why in the world are we engaging in that particular activity and why we want to do that, why we're passionate about it, there's always oneg there. We may not be aware of it. Because oneg, it's the innermost place that a lot of times has a lot of cover-ups. Okay, so therefore we know that oneg must have, every ratzon must have oneg preceding it. And what is it? Oneg hu shehu ma shehanefesh ba lidei gilui, or ba'atzmut. This is how soul comes into revelation in the essence, meaning when the essence is being revealed, but yet not drawn to anything else. And from this revelation, which we discussed, which is called oneg, is being manifested the ratzon, shehu b'chinas yiridas hanefesh, because ratzon is already descent of the soul, ledavar zulosei, for something else, meaning the oneg is from within me, and the ratzon, I already want something else. And if you remember, we had this diagram right here, okay, where we see this beautiful oneg, and that's called pnimius hakeser. This is the internal dimension of the keser. And then we have ratzon, which is a desire, and that's chitzonius hakeser. This is the outer dimension of the keser. And they are like igul. They are like a circle. First we see ratzon, sometimes we see oneg, and so on and so forth. They're like a circle. Okay, and whenever you'll see in any mamarim they're talking about igulim, this is what they mean. They mean this aspect that surrounds any action that we are taking, literally anything what you're doing, saying, any behavior precedes in seder ishtalshalos, comes out from the essence of the soul. Okay, and it always has oneg and ratzon. Literally any behavior. We could break it down and we analyze it, and you always reach, there is secondary ratzon, primary ratzon, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, it all comes to a place of oneg. Okay, now, v'hina bechinas ha'oneg, now this oneg, yeshnei bechinas, has two aspects to it. I like everything, right? There's no one thing. There's always something else, right? Because it's already gilui, let's not forget, right? Oneg murkav, there's a compound oneg, but oneg pashut, and a simple oneg. Interesting, what does this mean? Simple means not compound. Compound means it has something already there. Okay, there is already a division there. And what kind of division we will see? Oneg murkav, now we're going back to the oneg murkav. Hu ka'asher mislabish b'bchinas haratzon. Oneg murkav, the compound oneg, is called oneg murkav, is a compound. Why is it compound? Because it's already being enclosed in a ratzon. Meaning, and what was Ratzon? Ratzon was towards, it's already Zulat, it's already somebody else, it's not you, right? That means it's further away, a little bit further away from the essence. Okay, if it's already Oneg, that has relationship with a Ratzon, it's already compound. It's not the essential Oneg. Okay? The Oneg Pashut and the simple Oneg, who kodem shemitlabash b'bchinas haratzon. It's before it's being enclosed in the Ratzon. Rakhu b'bchinas gilui or atzmiut hanefesh adai. But it's only the revelation of the essence of the soul yet. Okay? Now, let's see in our diagram, what are we talking about? Okay? This is a very, very interesting level. Okay, here we go. We have our oneg here. Okay, and then we said that the oneg divides into two. Okay, oneg divides into two. Oneg pashut, it's just the revelation of the light of the essence. No contingencies. There is nobody else. I am within myself, and I'm just becoming aware of myself. Okay, that's all. There is nobody else. I don't want anything. There is no ratzon. There is only me. Now, Oneg Murkav already has a contingency to my ratzon and desire. It's for lezulat. It's for somebody else. Something outside of me. Okay? So that's something outside of me that I desire. That's already a compound. And I have pleasure for that. Therefore, I desire it. That's already Oneg Murkav. That's already a compound Oneg. Okay, so now we're going to be focusing on this Oneg Pashut. It's this plain Oneg, me within myself. It's nobody else yet. I'm not stepping out of myself. I'm not stepping out of my essence. It's my experience of my essence. Now, to be honest, when we speak in these terms, probably everybody is like, what is that? We don't even know what that is. What are we talking about? What is that? Because we see how much we are engaged outside of ourselves to such an extent that we don't even know what that is. We don't even know how that feels. And yet, Chassidus teaches us that this exists in every single person. Okay, let's go back to the text. Gam b'bchinas oneg hapashut, that even in this simple oneg, yeshtei b'chinas. There is two levels. Ha'alev u b'tchilasei. In the beginning, the first one is in the beginning, shu ne'elam, that's hidden, meaning hidden from him. It's his super consciousness, super unconsciousness, whatever you want to call it, okay, that he's not even aware of. It's ne'elam, it's hidden. You could ask yourself, hidden from who? From himself. Okay, so there is this oneg that's hidden from him. He's not aware of it yet. Ve'eino murgash adain, and it's not felt. Why it's not felt? Because it's hidden. Something hidden you cannot feel. You're not aware of it. And the second one, hu ka'asher midgale b'murgash yosef. And the second one, it's already when it's already being revealed in a felt way. But look at the language here. B'murgash yosef, meaning it's relatively felt. It's more felt than the previous one. Okay? Sha'az nimshach mimeno makor haratzon. And from there, it becomes a source of the ratzon. Now, let me ask you, what was the difference between the first, when he mentioned about the ratzon, about the oneg murkav, the compound oneg, the way it's being mislabish in the ratzon, and the other one becomes makor for ratzon? What do you think the difference is?
Could you say that again? Could you say that again, please?
Sure. So as you notice here, The compound one, okay, let's just go to the diagram. It will be a little bit easier, right? We mentioned that this oneg murkav, right, has the ratzon. It's being enclosed in the ratzon, meaning if you open this ratzon, oh, why do you want this? Something that other than you, okay? Oh, because there's oneg there. The oneg always encloses in the ratzon. Any ratzon you cut, you always will find oneg there. Okay. Now, then we just mentioned that this oneg pashut, the simple oneg, also divides into two. One is oneg ne'elam, it's a hidden oneg, and therefore it's not murgash. The other one is oneg murgash. Now this oneg murgash becomes the source for this ratzon. This level actually encloses inside, okay, like that. You're like, hey, what's going on there, okay? And this one becomes the source. What's the difference between them? What do you think it means that one becomes a source for something versus something becomes enclosed in it? What do you think that means?
So is it that when it's the source, it's potential, but when it's already enclosed, it's there's something revealed.
Exactly. Meaning it's there already, right? It's like it's hislapshus. Can you imagine? I am enclosed in this garment right now. If you open this garment, who do you see? Mila. Okay? That means hislapshus. Okay, so this oneg murkav is enclosed in this ratzon. That's it. It's there. Here we go. That's why it's called murkav. That's why it's called compound. Why? What compound of what? It's already part of the ratzon. Why you have this ratzon? Because I have this oneg. Okay? So there is because. You understand? But there are some things that just is, not because. There's no because there. Therefore, there was no question why. Have you ever worked with children? You ask them, why did you do this? And they have no idea. They have no concept, right? Never ask your children why they do things because they don't know the answer. Because they live out of this space. They live out of this oneg. They just had oneg. They just had this desire to do it. Why? Because there's this oneg. There is no why. Why is seichel? Children don't have seichel, meaning it's not developed. Most of them, they can't even talk until they properly put the sentences together until the age of 4 or 5. So that's why the subconscious mind, that's exactly where it works, because it works on these planes of oneg pashut, oneg murkav, oneg ne'elam, the hidden oneg, and then there's oneg murgash, right? It's a felt oneg, and that felt oneg becomes the ratzon. Why? Why do you think a felt oneg is going to become makor for ratzon? Well, if I don't feel my oneg, I'm not going to want it. As simple as that. It's very simple. We're literally going back to basics of understanding human nature. It is truly nothing compound in what we are talking about. But a lot of times, because of the society pressures and what we think we should want and we should not want, we block our own ratzon and we block our own oneg, because for some reason in Frum specifically communities, we are afraid to say the word pleasure. Okay, because I don't know whether it's maybe some kind of effect of Christianity or something like that. Definitely has affected and infected the way we perceive the world and we perceive Torah. Torah, under no circumstances, is there to take the oneg from people. On the contrary, the Torah wants to reveal the true oneg that we have, that's being blocked by our Nefesh HaBahamis. Okay. And in Contrastes Philos, he goes there into very, very detailed explanation as to how to show on Nefesh HaBahamis a true pleasure to hook up in pursuit of pleasure, but of pleasure of Hashem, a true pleasure. Okay. And for some reason, people feel like, nah, that's dry. But if Hashem is the one who created all the pleasures of the world, okay, can we believe how much pleasure it is to experience Hashem? Would be, because he's a makor of all pleasures. Okay. Anyway, we're getting a little bit sidetracked. Anyway, so this is for the...
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it's fascinating that you pointed that out. I totally missed that. It's really, it's so profound, because it makes so much more sense that this, I'm just trying to wonder, like, what is that difference between, you know, really being enclosed and being the source? He doesn't even say shoresh. He doesn't say that oneg morgash is the shoresh for ratzon. It's the source. It seems to me from what we discussed in previous classes that the source, the shoresh is more active. The source, the makor.
But very simple, Maria. Let's just look at this. Why would somebody want this? Why would you want to have that ice cream? Like, it's very simple. Because you feel pleasure when you eat it.
Right. But
so that's why oneg morgash is the source for us.
So, but the oneg morgash is still an experience of beingness. There's not...
Fine, that's why he says makor. That's why he doesn't say shorish.
Yeah.
Meaning, if I am in my being, okay, in my complete, just me, okay, with my essence, okay, and when I'm there in that space of me with my essence, feel the oneg, okay, that felt oneg is always going to be triggered when I'm outside, when I travel outside of myself. For whatever reason I need to do. Why would somebody travel out of this space? Let's just imagine you experiencing this place. Why would you need anybody? You are complete, you are whole. Well, simply because Hashem forces you. That's the only reason. Okay? Because no normal person would ever say, oh, I'm too tired of this nonsense, I'm going to step out. No, this is a very good place. This is the delight of your soul. Why would somebody say, like, I care about somebody else? There's nobody else there in that space. Because it's a whole completion. This is where all Neshamas Yisrael unite into one thing. There's no divisions there. Absolutely no divisions. Me is you, you is me. I am Hashem, Hashem is me. Yeah, and this is like this lofty level, and we are revealed, meaning we're aware of all this. Okay, this, you know, a totality and this total completion. And why would we do anything? There's nobody else, right? This is the level of Yachid, with only me and Hashem in such a unity that there's absolutely no difference. This is the level of Tamasi. We are like twins, right? It's a complete unity. And why would somebody travel outside of that? Well, because Hashem says, well, you know what? I created this world, and this is where my ultimate pleasure, okay? And I want you to be down below there and experience this level. And you're like, really? Are you out of your mind or something? But look of how much Hitchalkus is down there. How much divisions is down there. It's like you're going to go nuts. This is what we're going through. And there's omek of Bina, and there's omek of this, and then there's omek of that, and then there's Oref, and then the light travels in 2 directions, in 4 directions, in 75 directions, and there's these people and that people, and this Klippa is, forget about it, she's looking in horror. This neshama is looking down in horror to all the hitchalkos that she has to travel through. Okay? But she does it. Why? Because Hashem said so. That's it. This is just on that ultimate level. Now, there's always that oneg murgash that she feels. That's going to be the pathway that she could come back to herself. She could come back to that place. That's why it becomes makor for the primary ratzon. Out of this primary ratzon, there's going to be all the divisions are coming out. And she always will find the path back through this oneg murgash, becoming the source of this primary ratzon. Okay, so it's like, I would say it's like what do you want to call it? I have the words for this. Lighthouse. Becomes her lighthouse. Direction to hope. That she has constant access to. And that's what Hashem says. Ekia asher ekia. Right? And this is, if you remember, this whole thing in Chumash, when Moshe Rabbeinu asks, what's your name? He says, well, Ekia asher ekia. And Rashi says, Ekia, I will be with them, getting them out of this golus, and I will be with them in all the future golus. And Moshe Rabbeinu is like, wait a second, they didn't get out of this golus yet. Why are you telling them about other goluses out there? And that's why when he brings them, when he says this Basura Segula to Bnei Israel, he only uses one Ekia. If you notice it's in the Psukim, you'll see there. He only says, Ekia sent me. He doesn't say Ekia Asher Ekia sent me, because he didn't want to discourage Bnei Israel. He's like, I'm not going to tell them about the future Golos. They didn't get out of this Golos yet. So he was very empathetic to them. So that's why he used only one Ekia. Okay, but truly, Ekia Asher Ekia, meaning there is this echo response, in a way, that it's like this rope. That's why he calls it Pnimius Nekudas Halev. It's like this rope that always brings you back to your essence. It's never distorted. It's not mislabish into anything yet. It becomes the source of the ratzon, but it's not mislabish yet into anything. Because when we clothe in something, we sometimes melt into it. The garment has an effect on us. But this is the level, it becomes a source for something, but yet not enclosed into anything. It's not contingent on anything. It's absolutely free state of being. But felt.
Okay. So
Well, I wonder if I can interpolate something here.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm trying to my own like way of seeing this whole oneg thing, and I invite your comment on it. So I was using maybe the way they defined it in what's it called in the Lechadodi, yeah? The Maimer talks about pleasure there. And so he explains that oneg, he uses, I think, a word, the capacity for pleasure. So, okay, so there's my human experience, and it parallels the divine realms. It's not identical, but so I'm just using my human experience. So the way I'm seeing it is like this. So if you have a capacity for pleasure embedded deep in your core, and it's a capacity, and I'm making up my own motion, like you have a hand, and the hand does things with fingers that hands do. And so this capacity is that kind of more abstract capacity. And then let's say you're going to have a cup of coffee. So it becomes a composite. Now you have the capacity for pleasure plus the pleasure that you're getting from an actual sensory experience. And that's how otherwise we don't even know about the pleasure, but the pleasure is
Yeah, I will comment on that, because the capacity, the word for capacity that they use in Ma'amarim is called hayuli. Remember, we use the capacity to contemplate.
I'm going to schlep it out.
Yeah, but here he's not using this expression, and he also uses the word murgash. At that moment, it's murgash, it's felt.
Once it comes out, it's murgash.
It's exactly. There's no
then-
capacity for it. Maybe we could see about that oneg ne'elam as a capacity, this level. The oneg ne'elam, the hidden,
It
concealed.
talks about Oinek Poshut, as far as I know.
No, it's oneg pashut, but oneg pashut has two. One is felt and one is not felt. So we are talking right
one
now
second,
about the
opened it
felt
up.
one.
V'tainuk haposhet shabilti murkav klal. That's how he meant talks about in the
Okay,
Maimer.
good, fine, no problem. But you see, we're going a little bit more b'derech prat.
But there
Okay, because even in the pashut bilti murkav, there is two levels. One is ne'elam and one is murgash. You're right. He is
Right.
over there just generalizing it into oneg pashut.
Okay, so 1 second. So I found, here's what he said. The Indian who b'tainuk haposhet gufa yesh beis dargis, tainuk haposhet hamurgash, v'tainuk ha'atzmi habilti murgash. Okay.
Okay, that's exactly. So that's what it is. Bilti murgash is probably a potential, a capacity to feel. But once it's murgash, you're already feeling it.
Right.
There is you that's feeling it. But you are complete oneness. It's not even echad, it's yochid. You
Right.
understand? There's a difference between echad and yochid. In later chapters, from chapter 10 and on. So if you hang on, we're gonna eat that. We're gonna eat that piece of
Mhm.
Shari Yichud. Yeah. So when he's talking about that aspect of Yochid, and that's in this Lechadoidi, not Lechadoidi. I'm sorry, in Basilagani.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That the Rebbe talks about these three levels from before the Tzimtzum, the Yecholis, right? The ability, the capacity.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, but over here he's not using the word Yecholis. It's already murgash. A person is already experiencing it. It's the experience itself. Not wanting to experience, but actually experiencing.
Where is he saying that?
He said that because it's murgash. He says over here, it's already murgash. Here, let's go back to the text. Behina bechinas ha'onek yeshnei bechinas. Onek murkav, onek pashut, right? Onek pashut hu kodem shemishlabish bechinas haratzon. Rakshu bechinas gilui or atzmius hanefesh hadai. Right? It's a revelation atzmius hanefesh. Bechinas onek pashut yeshnei bechinas. Right? Onek pashut now has two aspects. Aleph betchilasoi. That he is hidden and not felt yet. That's already revealed in the murgash more. That from there is being manifested the source for the ratzon. Okay, now he's going to give us all bunch of Kabbalistic explanations now for the same thing. Right? We already said that. Now, Onek splits into two. Pashut Murkav. Pashut splits into two. Murgash, not Murgash. Yeah, Murgash and not Murgash. Now he gives us a whole bunch of Kabbalistic explanations. Now, you don't need to know it, to be honest, because the concept already there. He laid out the concept. However, it will enhance you just knowing it simply because when it comes up later on, you'll know what he means. You'll know which levels he refers to. Here, the Murkav, okay, what's Chesed? Let's understand Chesed. Chesed, I'm already running towards something. It's already a Midah, and every Midah involves somebody else. Okay, involves Zulas. Therefore, the Murkav, it's already Chesed of the Atik Yomin. What's Atik Yomin? Atik Yomin is a term in Kabbalah used for Oneg. Hamalubish B'Gulgolta, the way it's already enclosed in the skull. What is the skull? Skull, it's already individual. Skull, it's already something. Okay, and the Gulgolta is already Oneg. Oneg Pashut, but the simple Oneg, who Bechinas Gimel Reish, the Atik Yomin, has 3 heads of Atik Yomin, and you're like, whoa, is that a 3-headed dragon? No. It's okay. Gimel Reish means Kachab, koach, chachma and bina. Sheyesh bezagufa beis bechinas. And in this kachab of keser, chachma and bina, not chavai, not chabad, because it's not. Chabad has already das there. Here we're talking about before das, meaning I'm not contingent into anything. Okay, I did not make up my mind yet. Okay, whether I want it or don't want it. There's no ratzon. That's why it's a pure gimel ration. 3 head. It's pure keser, it's pure chachma and pure bina. No application yet, no desire to do anything. Okay, bechinas gimel ration the atik yomin. Right, which is what? Sheyesh bezagufa beis bechinas, and that's what we'll divide into 2. Ha'alev, bechinas keser and chachma. Keser and chachma, they are hidden. Remember? It's unaware. They're going to remain there into hidden onek. Shehu bechinas onek hanelam. This is the aspect of hidden onek. V'habeis bechinas bina. And the second one is bina. And bina is always about yesh. Okay? Remember? Bina is always yesh. Okay? And what that yesh is the yesh of Atik Yomin. Okay? Shehu bechinas hergesh ha'oneg. That the bina, it's about feeling the oneg. It's not a potential. It's not a capacity. It's the actual experience. Shemizeh dafka na'aseh makor l'golgolta. And from this specifically, he becomes the source for the Golgotha, the source for the skull. Shehu atzmiut haratzon. That becomes the essence of the ratzon. And you might be like, oh, Mittel Rabbi or Rabbi Hillel, why in the world I need to know this breakdown? Why? We'll see why. Okay, now. V'zeu shorish uvanta deliba, and that becomes the shorish for the uvanta deliba, for the understanding of the hearts. Shehu b'chinas bina da atik yomin, which is the aspect of bina of atik yomin. Bina liba. This is bina liba. Pnimius nekudas alev. This is the inner aspect of the heart. Shemizeh naaseh makor l'golgolta. And from this, it becomes the source for the Golgotha. And we're going to go back to the presentation. Okay, we're going to count now. We're going to be mislabish all this into our Kabbalistic terms. Okay, here we go. We have oneg, and we should have added here atik yomin. I think I see we missed that. If we're already adding the Kabbalistic terms for it. So this is atik yomin. What atik yomin means? An old guy, an old ancient guy. It's so ancient. It's probably 5,685-year-old guy sitting there. That's atik yomin. That's when Hashem decided, like, okay, if I'm creating the world, I want to create it with pleasure. Okay, that's why the pneumius of a psyche of every single human being, every single creature is desire to live, right? Why? Because there's desire, there's oneg to be. That's all. Everything, if you open up every single ratzon, there's a ratzon of that ratzon, of that ratzon, of that ratzon. You're going to continue opening, unwrapping your ratzonos, okay? You will find a desire to be. This is the primary ratzon, okay? And you're going to open that primary ratzon. Why you want to be? Because you have pleasure to be, period. It's not explanatory. It's above seichel, okay? Okay, that's why whenever there is chas v'shalom, something suddenly happening, people do extraordinary things, miracles. People jump, I don't know, records. Why? Records are broken. Why? Simply because they're able to access the essence of the soul. And that's where it lays, because in the essence of the soul, they could do anything. There is no limitations. This is the place of no limitations. Now, this oneg has 2 things. Gimel ration the atik yomin, which is kasab. Okay, and then chesed of the atik yomin. Okay, now, this gimel ration divided into 2. We're going to take this 3-headed dragon and we're gonna just split these two heads, and we're gonna split it to Keser v'Chachma of Atik. You know what I mean? And that's gonna be the hidden Oneg. Now we're gonna take this, okay, the Bina, and that's gonna be Makor for the Golgotha. Okay? It's gonna be the source for the Golgotha. Okay? Now, that's actually should be green. Okay, so what does it mean it becomes the source for the Golgotha? Who knows when we use the word source? What's Golgotha? The same thing. Golgotha is Ratzon. Okay? Golgotha is Ratzon. It's your skull. Here. We said that. Golgotha is your Ratzon, and that's called in Kabbalistic terms Arich Anpin, a long face. And you're like, oh my gosh, we have this old guy, and then somebody presses on his two sides, and his face just stretches out like that. No, I'm just making it up. Okay. Arich Anpin and also Golgotha. This is the same level, which is Ratzon. Now, it's short. Now, why is he saying that? Because what he wants to single out is giving us all this detailed diagram to single out this specific level, just this one, this one. He says, this one is different. What's different about it? He says, now, this level that I just made, bright pink, he said, it's different. Why is it different? Because this is the level which is called Pnimis Nekudas Halev. This is the inner aspect, the inner point of the heart, which is called Bina Liba. Okay, why is he saying this to us? Well, very simply, because he's going to say, you see this Bina of Atik? Bina of Atik is responsible to feed us right now with some kind of oneg as to why in the world 13 women are going to gather on a weekly basis together to do what we do right now. This is the place that's responsible for this. There is some kind of oneg there, whether you want it or not. It's hard. Oh my gosh, it's boring. It's detailed. I cannot wrap my mind around it. There's absolutely no way I will ever get past the first chapter, and whatever everything else you do, whichever way you explain it yourself. But it's unexplainable why in the world for 13 people for over a year since October 7th are gathering here. And you just do this boring stuff. If I tell anybody, you know, my husband, for example, he constantly interests, like, how many people came to your class? How many people came to your class? 13 women. He's like, he cannot wrap his mind around it. Why in the world people will study this? Okay, well, simply, there is some kind of oneg right there. Somewhere, our Bina Liba is just like sending these impulses, sending these messages whenever everybody else wants to give up, like, no. And, you know, the most exciting part, it's around 80 women that signed up for this. Okay, we're sending weekly emails to them, asking them if they don't want, they could unsubscribe. Maybe 5 people unsubscribed. Okay, but the rest of them still want to have at least emails spamming them. Okay, we don't see 80 people on this call. We have 13 people on this call. That's a large number. You know, when we were opening this class and we were talking about it with Naria, we were like, okay, if like 4 or 5 people will stay, okay, we are in a winning place. But, you know, we doubled and tripled that 4 or 5 people that we had in mind. And you might think, like, you might give yourself all kinds of explanations. Why are you still hanging on with us? But truly, this Bina Liba. Why? Because your Eon has full direct access to that. Why? Why not Das, you might ask? Right? Because we don't have Das yet. The revealed. So what do you think will keep us going? something higher than Das. Is how being the labor as simple as that, right? Why in the world Kalim would be revealing light, right? It says Kalim Mashkim Ar. A Kalim is going to reveal light? Yes, because Kalim are coming from a place which is higher than light. That's why they can reveal light. That's how Hashem created. It's amazing. It's amazing that we see similar patterns throughout all of creation. And when we uncover this, and you might think to yourself, like, why in the world I need this? How am I going to apply this in my daily life? And we hear these questions all the time. Well, we don't need to learn how to apply it in our mind. The fact that we know that this is the map of the creation of the world. If we know this code, we know code to any of its creation. Everything works exactly this way. There is nothing in creation, in Kedusha, that works otherwise. Even the Klippa is built on this. And we will see, like in Tanya, in the later chapters, he talks about the Hishtalshalis of the Klippa. It's a little bit different, but the main structure remains the same. Okay? And when we understand the structure of how the world works, then we're able to live anything. You could cook, you could bake your cake with that knowledge. But we're not going to tell you how, because it will come to you. It will come to you how.
Mila, can I
Yes.
just comment? I hope this will be a clarifying comment, but can you just close that color bar so it makes it a little bit larger?
I can actually do the presentation now, because when you're in a present mode, then you cannot open the second window there. But here we are. Yeah.
So what I understood is, okay, it's easier if we understand that Oneg is called Atik Yomin in Kabbalah. But basically what I'm seeing here is that within Oneg, there are 10 Sfirot. And so the first split to Oneg Pashut or Oneg Morkav is a split into the intellect of Oneg and the midot of Oneg. Because that's what he explains in the Kabbalah, that Oneg Pashut is then Keter, Chochmah, and Bina, which is intellect, as it were, of Oneg. And then Oneg Morkav is the beginning. Oh, suddenly everything disappeared.
I'm sorry. It was me playing around.
Yeah.
Oh no. Where is it? Okay, here we go.
There we go. So then the Oneg Morkav becomes the beginning of the midot, because it's chesed of Oneg, chesed of Atik Yomin. So that's really the split. And look, maybe if you don't know the 10 Sfirot so well, then it's not clarifying. But for me, that's very clarifying. It's like the one you're talking about the intellect of Oneg, and the other you're talking about the midot of Oneg. And then within the intellect of Oneg, you separate out between, what's more hidden, which is Keter and Chochmah, and what's more revealed or Morgash, which is the Bina of Oneg. And so then it doesn't feel so intimidating, because all these, different terms can feel intimidating. It's like, wow, how am I ever going to remember that?
You don't need to remember this. I think also, let's understand why he's sticking chesed right here. Why not Gevura? Where's Gevura? It's very simple. Gevura means the answer is no. We're not going out of self. Get it? Now, the chesed says yes. That's why we're talking about chesed. We're not talking about Gevura now, because Gevura for this discussion would be irrelevant. We don't need to know what Gevura is going to say. The Gevura we know will say no. Chesed is yes. We're moving forward with this project. Gevura will say no. No matter how you're going to explain it to me, no matter how you're going to describe what kind of oneg I'm going to get, I'm not moving forward with that yet. I want to stay where I want to stay. That's why he brings out the chesed, because chesed is desire to step out of self.
Right.
That's why he's bringing that, and therefore not Gvura, not Tiferes, not Netzach, not Hod. That's later on. We're not there yet. And
Hello, I'd like to, I'm sorry to differ a little bit. I think Gvura is more about measuring. Once that you say yes, the Gvura says how much.
it's
More
also, but for this sake of this discussion, he's not bringing Gvura. Seems to be for a reason that we don't need to talk about, because there is the desire to expand outside of self. That's chesed. And in order for him to explain how it's mislabish into ratzon, that's good enough. He's not going to confuse us now with the gevura. You're right. There is a gevura that will say how much, but we're not going there because it's irrelevant to the discussion of now. Okay, because what he wants to bring out, how the oneg is within the essence, which is oneg pashut. Okay. And oneg murgash brings it into the pnimis nekudas alev. And the compound oneg that's already being mislabesh into the ratzon. Here, I'm already mislabesh. You open this ratzon, you'll see this oneg there. Okay, that's it. Now, the reason why he brings it, he calls it into chesed, very simple. Because it is chesed. Because the decision was made, will step out of my essence. For whatever reason it is. It doesn't matter.
Okay, Mila, should we move to the exercise, or do maybe just see if there are questions?
So we're gonna move to this slide, Bezrat Hashem, and
I just posted it on the WhatsApp group.
okay, great. And look at that. Oh, nothing is there. Okay. So what you're gonna do is we're gonna send you out to the
Mila, I had a thought. I thought that maybe it would be a good idea if people try to do this on their own for 10 minutes, so that everybody sits with the text and then goes for 10 minutes into a breakout group. How about that? I think that it might help with the focus.
So let's do that. Now, as you see, text has all the answers. All what you need to do is just fill in. That's it. Oneg is divided into 2. The upper level of oneg divides into 2 as well. And that's it. So you just open with the Hebrew text or English text, and all what you need to do is just fill it in.
And
okay, so I'm going to keep it up, and maybe we could pause the recording, and then we're going to go to the breakout rooms where you could share and compare what everybody else wrote.
So there's also there's the summary, the English summary of the paragraph is available on the WhatsApp group. So you can work from that if you want, or I'm putting it also here into the chat. So that might be easier for English speakers. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.
Both were
Both
were excellent. Both
okay.
excellent.
Can you share what do you mean by that? What happened for you?
Well, because when I was by myself, so then I had to take my quadrants. The summary was very helpful. Plus I had written notes, and then I started putting everything in their boxes. Not that I understood it very much at all. Then when I went to the summary with my chavrusa, then we read through, having another person who, don't want to embarrass her, but I think is brilliant because she's just listening and she really grasps it. It was just really helpful then to read through the summary and then apply more. Everything started to make sense, except for, I don't want to say makes sense. I don't grasp things, but at least have it, like your mind maps kind of thing. except for, let me go back to my summary, one line where I just went, just one area where I just wasn't as clear. That's all. So yeah, for me, it was great.
Okay, can you say what wasn't clear?
Yeah.
Clarify.
When we said Oneg Merkov is Chesed Avatik Yomin, I just wanted more on that because the Oneg Pashut gets described a lot. You see, oh, you've got the Oneg Nelam, and that's Keser and Chachma. You've got Oneg Murgash. Oh, and then you know, it's all those things. It's you guys talked about, you feel that Yachid, oneness itself, and then it's the essence of the desire of the skull, and then it's also all the terms of Anta Deliba and you know, everything else, you know, being a Liba, all those things are plugged in there. But then with Oneg Merkab, I just didn't have I'm getting lost.
Mila, do you want to share the final, like the image, so that when we're talking about it, we know what we're talking about?
Which one? The one that we need to fill out, or the final one?
The one that is filled out with all the terms. Shosh, I think what you pointed out.
I know Oneg Merkab is just you'd said it, pleasures enclosed in your ratzon, in your desire. But then we said it's Chesed Vatik Yomin, and then I was like, as it's enclosed in the skull, and I'm like, oh, okay. You know,
because this is slapshus already. You see, if you look at the screen, meaning it is Ovid Murkav, but it's not just freestanding Einek. This is freestanding Einek. This one is, enclosed in this ratzon. You see what happens?
All right. I knew you were doing that, and I guess I wasn't.
Yeah, I just did that because I cannot keep it there. Why? Because, you know, you won't be able to see what is this about. So yeah, that's why I put this error there. So you see that it gets enclosed there, but it's kind of, you know, so we could see its own identity. Maybe we could lower it down a little bit somehow here. You know, so it's like, maybe we could do it like this. Like it's like kind of touching each other.
We came up with an idea for it.
Yeah.
The ratzon with the reason. For example, you know that certain foods are good for you. You might not necessarily like maybe bitter or sour foods or
no. It's not there. I'll tell you. I'll stop you. There's no reason. On a Murkav, it's still Lamala Mitam Badas.
What?
Got it. Okay. So
no, it's not there yet. You're right. That is gonna affect this oneg, and this ratzon is gonna affect our reasoning. Okay? Because do you know, so many people, we all the time gonna find confirmation of our beliefs in the world. Why? Because there's a higher ratzon behind there. That's why it's very important whenever people say like, oh, you know, do home birth, and the other one says, no, never do home birth because emergencies could happen. And people say, no, emergencies happen dafka in the hospitals, and all that whole discussions. Have you ever seen two opposites having discussions, and each one bringing proof how in their personal lives there was manifestations of the beliefs? Why is it? It's because that's how it is. Whatever we believe in, we see that manifest in our life, and we could give hardcore proofs. So that's why it's useless to have this type of faiths, because that's how brain works. We see what we want to see. Remember that chush? That's the expression of the ratzon. That chush is going to sense what the ratzon is about. If the ratzon is about finding how hospitals are safe based on the belief that the person has, that you're going to see in newspapers, everything. Who you're going to meet on the street, different stories, right? We have like a pack of stories, right? Of different people sharing with us. the database of stories. Okay, this database is going to be filled aligned to what your chush is. Your chush is going to look and find, what do you call it? Proofs for your ratzon. Okay, so it's useless debates for people who have strong ratzons in one or the other story. And the other one is going to bring the chush, activate the chush, and they have already database. The chush is already long time activated, so this is just a lost game. So we're talking about lemala metam v'das. There's no reasoning yet. That's how powerful our ratzon is. And therefore, even it says, Shum davar la'omed b'fnei ratzon. Nothing stands in the way of ratzon. And ratzon is our key. Okay? It commands, and our body fulfills. It commands. What is that?
So how is it Murkav above Tam Das?
Yeah, well, that's Murkav doesn't mean it's Seichel. Murkav means it's already Zulat. Yes, he said it clearly in the text. It says Davar Zulat. He didn't say Seichel. He did not say in the whole paragraph one word of Seichel. There's no brain yet. Brain is not even activated. We are talking about the levels which are higher than even Chachma Stima. We're talking about levels which is higher than a potential for an intellect. There's no intellect. And it's all based on pleasure and ratzon and desire. That's it. We are still in Igulim. There's no kav yet. We are still in that dance between oneg and ratzon. But
Can I ask what's the relationship between Bina Liba and Ratzon? Because you have it on the side of the bar and Ratzon coming out as if it's
well,
not...
no, it is. It's not on the side. The reason I put it on the side because I could do the same thing here.
Okay, so it's an internal
it's exactly
part of
exactly yeah.
Oneg
It's
Murgash.
exactly the same thing. No, it's the same thing. It's not an internal part. Oneg Murgash is Bina Liba. Bina Liba is Oneg Murgash.
Okay,
It's
and
the same thing. We
channeled
just put
into
it next
Ratzon.
to each other. Exactly. And that becomes makor for the ratzon. That's the relationship. They become the source of the ratzon.
So does Oneg Murgash always have Bina Liba? Are they always together?
It's the same thing. It's the
Okay.
same thing. How you're going to say is Bina of Atik is Oneg Murgash. Yes, it is. Bina Liba is Atik of Atikyom. Bina of Atikyomin is Makor Legulgalta. It's Oneg Murgash. Bina Liba, Pnimius Nekudas Alev. All this means the same thing.
Thank you.
We're just using different terminologies that you will find in Chassidus. You'll see all this all the time. And you're like, oh, I didn't know, but it's the same thing. If tomorrow you're going to see Bina of Atik Yomin in one of the Ma'amarim or in Tanya, you know that we're talking about Bina Liba. If you're going to hear the Rebbe in Sikha saying, Penix Nekudas Alev, and you're like, oh, I know what that is. That's Bina of Atik Yomin. That's Bina of my Oneg. Okay, and what is Bina of your Oneg? Is Oneg Murgash, Pashut. It's a simple Oneg which is felt. What is simple oneg which is felt? Well, that's a space where you are, that's a pure revelation of your essence, but it's not compound yet. It's not attached to something outside of you. Oneg Murkav is something outside of you, meaning it's enclosed in the Ratzon, and the Ratzon is running towards something else. It's like, no, we are still in the essence. It's very hard for us to understand these levels because we're hardly aware of our essence. That's why we're asking so many questions, which is fine. We need to cook in it. And all these components, it's like a cholent, it will become, in a cholent, there is a terminology, the more it cooks, the better it gets, right? In halacha, that's why there are certain foods that you're allowed, if you're allowed to remove it from the blech or put it on a blech because it already cooked. By what halacha term the cholent becomes cooked? Not when the potatoes are soft. On the contrary, you can't really do that. Halachic opinions say no. Because mitzamek v'toivloi, the more he cooks, the better it gets. So you can't really move cholent. So it's a problem. You should put it on the blech before Shabbos, regardless, because the cholent is an iffy halachic situation, because the more it cooks, the better it gets. So all these ideas, the more we cook it in ourselves, the more we try to explain it. Okay, what is oneg pashut? What is oneg ne'elam? What is oneg murgash? What is ratzon? What is gulgolta? And we cook it in our mind, the better our cholent will be. The more oneg we're going to have out of it. Why? Because this is the process of iyun. This is the iyun, is doing this. You know, it's cooking, is sitting on it, dwelling in it.
So I want to ask you something. Morkav is more where we are thinking about how to give it over, or like, is that, do you know there's an eye that watches, there's like this a little video that they were shooting elements, and it behaved in a certain way, but when the eye was watching it, it started behaving in a different way. Is that what you're talking about, Morkov?
Not really. I'll tell you what it is. Morkav means it's over, but meaning in our manifestations, right? In our Seder Ishtalshalos, there is this level that's beyond Seder Ishtalshalos. There is no Seder yet. Meaning Seder Ishtalshalos, anything that manifests, go through the stations, right? Meaning in order for something to manifest, there is an idea of somebody else involved. Like, for example, Hashem, right? Let's take Hashem. From before the Tzimtzum, there was only Hashem. There was no world. There was not even an idea of the world, right? Imagine that level where Hashem is all by himself, okay? And it's called Sha'ashay Melech B'Kadmusa, is like when Hashem is with his own oneg. That's it. Then he says, Ana Emlach. Let's create the world, okay? That's the level of Echad. Already, not Yochid. In Yochid, there is no concept of the world. There's no world. There's only Hashem. Not even in the thoughts. Ana Emlach, let us rule. Let me rule, I'm sorry. Let me rule. Ana Emlach. Okay? That's already a thought about the world. And then there's a level of Kadmon where Hashem is like, how am I going to rule? Okay? But still didn't do anything. He just sheer be'atzma, and measured within himself. How is he going to rule? He decided that I'm going to create 10 spheres, and each sphere is going to have omek, rochav, and orech, and and everything, and then he executed the order. Okay, that's already after the tzimtzum. But before the tzimtzum, there's this 3 levels, and although we call it before the tzimtzum, but the Rebbe says actually there is a tzimtzum. Why? Because the fact that he was thinking about the world, it's already a tzimtzum. Because maybe he could have think about something else, which we have no idea what he could have think about, right? Hashem is, the way we think that the world is, it didn't have to happen this way. It could have happened in unlimited possibilities, what it could have happened, which we can't even comprehend. Because the way we comprehend right now, it's specifically because the way how he comprehended in the beginning. Okay, am I confusing you? But that's just what it is, right? Because this is our ability to understand this creation. Now, but then there's this level, which is, there is no zulat. There is not even a thought about anybody else. It's only you. And I'm not talking about from egoistic perspective. I'm talking about from the perspective of an essence. Okay. We hardly allow ourselves to be there. Why? Because we think if I'm thinking only about myself, I'm egoistic. It's not true. Egoism is exploitation of others for the benefit of self. That's a definition of egoism. Okay. Thinking about it's our own benefit, it's not called egoism. As long as we're not exploiting others for the benefit of ourselves. Okay. So anyway, we're not into self-development here. Yet, but this is what we're talking about. We're hardly in that level. So murkav means it's an oneg that is contingent on a ratzon, and the ratzon is outside of self already. Okay, and we are talking about the level before that, preceding to that desire to communicate outside. even in the aspect of a thought.
Mila,
I don't know.
yeah, I think we should, we're already, time is up. So I just want to see if maybe anybody else has a question that they, that they want to ask. Otherwise, basically, I think that we should just wrap it up. It's obvious that, this is something that one just needs to think about. And also, he's giving it to us very derech klal. I guess that's what Shoshana is saying, is I want to know more. So he's just telling us what we need to know in order to understand what is Bina Liba. And he's, in the next few paragraphs, he's going to elaborate and give us other examples and other maps. And, later in other chapters, he goes into more details. So we don't have to understand it fully, but we need to understand as much as he's telling us. So Miriam, you have a question?
Yeah, it may be quite irrelevant, but just to clarify, the Bina Liba dimension is also dependent on Ratzon, is also dependent on desire. Is that right?
It's prior to desire. It's the source, it's the makor for the desire. The desire is sourced there, but it itself is not dependent on the desire. It becomes the source from which the desire will be fed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get it into like the right order. Thank you.
So
Sure, and just to mention that today we totally forgot to mention it's a Hilula of Baba Sali, so I'm sure
oh man,
this will give us some insights on this Kabbalistic teachings that we are heavily involved in right now.
okay. Is there anything else specific? Otherwise, we'll continue next week. Alkalea, you want to say something? Oh, okay. All right. So thank
Just
you to
agreeing that it's enough.
yeah, it's
a lot. It's a lot.
But it's very, it's very beautiful stuff that he's giving us a snapshot into. There are not many teachers who will take you into these realms and explain the details of it to you. It's very precious to have this map, because you will encounter these ideas in other places in Chassidut, but nobody is going to take the time to give you the map, to explain it to you. So even though it can feel a little overwhelming at times, really it's a big gift that he's giving us this map. And as you can see, it's not really so complicated. When you sit down and you work it out, you can see, okay, this is, in Oneg, there are 10 sferot. The one division is into the intellect of the sferot, and the other division is into the midot. And then they break down into more subtleties. And, and that's what he's describing to us, something really taking us into the essence of our soul, to a place of pure neshama. And then showing us how slowly that moves towards desire, towards wanting something. And, and the rest we already know, how it then comes down into intellect.
Yeah, and a lot of times what we might feel is overwhelmed whenever we go through the Seder Ishtalshalos, when we see all these details. However, I'm going to fix all of it. No, we don't need to fix all of it. We just need to get aligned with that one primary oneg. And the rest will structure itself.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Kol hakavod.
Much hatzlacha. We'll see you next week, B'ezrat Hashem.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.